So the first group of conceptual objects, as I mentioned, is to me cerebral objects. And I guess object is probably a bad word for this, right? Cerebral ideas, right? And I'm showing you how stark this can be with some pieces by Brecht, where these are literal idea pieces where he was saying you could do these things or you could not. And notice that he's kind of having fun with it too. He's being a little nonsensical with it. So I would say cerebralism can also be a little quirky in some ways, but usually not, right? It's usually pretty dry stuff. But again, this is usually how you see the ideas presented. Some famous conceptualists who work with cerebralism to me are such as Lawrence Weiner that you see here. In Weiner, what he does is, I think he really just introduces all these questions to you as an art purveyor, right? He says, these kind of pieces to me say, like, what is art anyway? What makes art one an artist? If you are looking at conceptual art, what do you collect? How do you show it? Who shows it? Can you own it? Um, Art used to be pretty easy to understand, I think, before conceptualism came along. It was a painting or it was a sculpture. That's pretty easy, right? You buy it, you put it in your house. And now conceptualism is like, I'm writing something on a wall with paint, and I'm being pretty literal about it. Weiner, says one quart exterior green industrial enamel thrown on a brick wall. I mean, it's the color of the paint, and he's writing words with it. He's being very literal about this, right? Once this show is over, the museum's just gonna paint over the walls, right? So, like, how do you own this stuff? Can you own it? How do you show it, right? He's really kind of challenging the boundaries of like what art is, right, and what we understand art to be. And saying it's this ephemeral thing. It's the idea is there and then it floats away. That in a sense, maybe art shouldn't be about what you own, right? Maybe it should be about what you think about, right, or how you engage with thinking about it. I love this, a bit of matter and a little bit more, right? And notice that his works were really language based, very language based. And so one of the things we get into with cerebral conceptualism is a lot of language based artists. I actually worked on a group called Art and Language as part of my dissertation, and they were really challenging you to think about like what if words are art? What does that mean? Another famous cerebralist is Joseph Kossuth, who was so serious about the sort of philosophy behind art that he actually went and got a PhD in philosophy. Now, if you've never studied philosophy, to me, it's one of the hardest humanities disciplines to study because a lot of it's about, very uh, moldable and pliable theories and ideas, right? There's not a lot of concreteness within philosophy, and there's a lot of theoretics to it. So going to get a PhD in philosophy to me is no small task, right? So he cared so much about the philosophical angle of what he was trying to get at, what he was trying to say, that he went and got a doctorate in this. So I'm like, wow, good on you, man. And I love his presentation of his type of conceptualism because he really starts to make you think about like, well, what is a thing anyway, right? So this is one in three chairs. If you think about it, it's three chairs. It's one in three chairs. There is a real chair, a physical chair. There is a photograph of a chair, and then there is the dictionary definition of a chair. So they're all chairs. They're just, how do you describe a chair? How do you envision a chair? How do you see a chair, right? If you know philosophy, you might look at Plato's ideal forms, where he said that there was an ideal form of everything. There was an ideal form of a chair, there's an ideal form of, love, right? That's platonic love. And he believed in this world of the forms, as he put it, the realm of the forms. And he said that everything we see is just a perversion of the ideal, right? So I always wonder if Kasuth is playing here a bit with the ideal forms a bit and saying, the chair that you see in front of you is just the manifestation of the physical object. What is the idea of the chair, right? Or what's the definition of a chair? And he's playing with that philosophical question, may we say, right? So Gnosis isn't probably what you expect to see in a museum, and it's not about craft or making in the traditional sense. It's very Duchampian, right? He literally took a chair and put it down and took a picture of a chair and blew it up. He didn't make these things. Let's put it that way, right? He's using his ideas to guide the making of the installation that he's doing here. rather than thinking about craft in a very traditional sense. And if you go back and look at Magritte, I'd say this is the same idea of challenging, like, this is not a pipe, right? But I'd say that Magritte was being kind of cheeky and kind of funny, right? And to me, conceptualism is not about being funny. It's a very, very dry kind of discipline about what is this thing and why do we say it is such, right? So, but again, I think you can kind of draw some connections between Magritte and conceptualism, and see how art history develops over time and that road that you're on, and right, and the things that develop along that road. And I think Kasuth was really thinking about meaning and context. He also often asked about, like, who has access to art. How should we have access to art? He actually did a bunch of pieces called thesaurus pieces, where he would take thesaurus definitions, right? And like print them in magazines. And he said, oh, you can rip that out of a magazine and put it on your wall, or you cannot rip it out at all. But this idea of, like, if you don't go to museums and galleries, how do you have access to art? So Kasuth also was asking these questions about, like, who should have access, right? Can you make art more fundamentally available to everybody, right? So he did these things where he printed things in magazines and such, and newspapers, and again was trying to open up perhaps and broaden out the audience for art making. And I think, within cerebral conceptualism, they're asking, is language itself valid as art? Is it different than literature? And I'd say, yes, it's very different than literature. It's not storytelling, it's not narrative in that sense. But again, just like performance art is treading into the grounds of, like, another discipline in the humanities, performance art will tread into theater, which is, what is theater and what is performance art, right? I'll ask that question when we get there. And I think, cerebral conceptualism asks, what is literature, what is language art, right? And what is the difference between those two things?